Hi, baby angels. Welcome back. I'm BB, and I have another tag for you. I am going to be doing the top 10 curiosity decks of VR2 Candy, Soul and Soil. Sorry. Yeah, I filmed this yesterday, but it went terribly, so I'm gonna do it again. If you hear weird sounds, it's my cat, and she's in heat because it's very expensive to get her fixed, so I haven't done that yet. Let's go. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit about a little bit of the reading that I did about curiosity cabinets because I like history. So, they kind of came into popularity in the late 1500s as a precursor to museums and a way that royalty and aristocracy could kind of show off their collections of things regarding natural history or sometimes faked natural history, oddities and things like that. Also their art collections and anthropological interests and all sorts of things like that. So maybe a cult too, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I was going off of when I was choosing decks. But also, even though the popularity of curiosity cabinets kind of dwindled in the Victorian era, I really feel like a lot of the things that we appreciate, or certain types of pop culture nowadays, are seen through a Victorian lens. And I really feel that with the curiosity cabinets, because when I think curiosity cabinets, I really do think of the Victorian era as well. And maybe that's due to the fact that everything that like I said, everything we see kind of is through that lens. For example, Shakespeare, if you notice that a lot of Shakespeare films are set in a Victorian or even Georgian or Edwardian time, in the 1700s to the 1800s, which is kind of nowhere near when Shakespearean times were actually happening. And it really puts such a different and pretty inaccurate spin on something that originally was a little bit more tawdry and provocative and kind of lowbrow. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I think that's something to keep in mind. But I think I also associate curiosity cabinets with steampunk, which is kind of, because I don't know, I was gonna say, this is not to be judgy at all, but I always feel like people who are into steampunk are into oddities and stuff, and that aesthetic. There's a shop in Burbank that is an oddities shop, and it's very heavily Victorian themed. So no, not all my decks are going to be Victorian, but that's kind of what my thinking is and where we're at. So my first deck is Le Terro de Femme Erotique, and it is very similar to what it sounds like. It is vintage erotica. And I feel like the taboo would also be in a cabinet of curiosity. Maybe just mine. Who knows? I also like that this spans a lot of different, a wide time frame. I like the sepia or sepia, I never know which way to pronounce it, finish on these images. And then some of these images are more from kind of a carnival-esque environment. I'm so sorry about my cat. This is what happened yesterday when I tried to film this too, but I feel like it was worse. We'll see. You know, some of these women were sideshow women. And I feel like it would fit. Hold on, I'm gonna get rid of her meowing. It has begun. As soon as I want to do something. And from like a Eurocentric place, if, you know, we're focusing on a cabinet of curiosities in like the European definition, a lot of these images too include figures and people of different cultures, or like classical, like Greco-Roman influence, and then what back then would be considered, I know I just saw one. Yeah, like what back then would be considered exotic, which we do not say because we do not other cultures. But, you know, I'm sure this is, I shouldn't say I'm sure. This might be, or probably is, some sort of cultural appropriation. I don't know if this is an authentic photo from a country outside of Western Europe, but I know that back then that would be of special interest, and it seemed very seductive. And I know that even in our culture today, that is the case still, unfortunately. A lot of objectification of non-Eurocentric beauty. Moving on. The next deck I have, you might be saying, what the heck, BB? And like the cat will sing you a song about the cat people. Anais, I need you to be quiet. I need you to be quiet, baby. Thank you. You go lay down, please. The reason I chose this is it feels really like anthropological, and I will tell you why. Let me explain. Also, I love the backs. They're so pretty. I feel like it's just rich with culture. I feel like if this wasn't some sci-fi world that was built for this wonderful deck, and I guess the subsequent, or I don't know if they predated the deck, they probably did, novels, there is so much culture and richness inside every card. So you have a gorgeous, rich headpiece, a shawl that's adorned with things. You have jewelry. You have this wonderful goblet. You know, and these are the types of things like archaeology was like a big interest, or, oh geez, she's really messing things up. Anais, please stop. No, you are being a bad girl. You're being a very bad girl. Okay, sorry. I don't know if that helped anything. She's right back. Okay, hold on. Okay, I put her in the other room. We'll hope that that works. So, as I was saying, this deck does such a good job of world building and shows what looks to be the history and the, you know, culture of this civilization so well. And I think that that's very curious, especially if this is supposed to be like from a different planet, right? And it's non-human, that anyone, it's kind of like, I went once to, hold on, my table's a little wonky at the moment. Okay. I went to the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, and there was this extra room you could go to, and it was called the Gold Room, and it showed gold from all different times in history, from all different corners of the world. And this deck reminds me of the things that I saw in that museum. And I can imagine that if I were a collector of ancient, beautiful, or far off things, literally far off, if this is a different planet, that all of these things would be of such great interest. So that's why I chose it, that it's very curious and very cool, and it's so rich in world building. There's so many clues to like how this planet like lives, and obviously what they value. Cats. It's very neat. All right, number 3. Let's do the Spolia. This is the Spolia, first edition. This is like a hand-done collage deck. This has a lot of imagery and artifacts. Like we've got this coin here. We've got even like insects, which reminds me of, you know, butterflies pinned in a shadow box. We have definitely occult symbolism, secret societies. I believe that those were all the rage back in those days. You know, and like alchemy. Another ring. Like a ship in a bottle. I know it's not in a bottle, but stay with me here. Yeah, this feels like a collection in itself, or like, you know, to have like anatomical things inside of your cabinet, like very kind of curious about the body, because especially back in those centuries there wasn't as much known about it, so I could just picture like organs inside of jars and things like that. Just mixing the natural world. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about fake natural history, right? So it was very, very common for people to use bones to create a skeleton of like a hybrid animal and claim it to be something real. And so yeah, that's why this deck really makes me feel like it fits the bill, you know? Vessel. Yeah, very alchemist. I didn't notice this until recently, but this is like a jewel, and this is a jewel here, and I didn't really notice the background before because I was always looking at the foreground, but it's so cool. Snake skin. It even has, you know, figures from that time frame when cabinets of, maybe this was before, I mean this may have been before the late 1500s, because a monk like that could be in the 1400s too, but you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? I think this is a good one. I don't have a lot of I noticed I don't have a lot of curious decks in the same way that other people do, so I guess I'm just going for the the kind that makes sense to me and that I have access to. So I chose the Thoth as my number 4, I believe, just due to its occultism, its rich symbolism and references to Egypt. I think that there's just so much that's fascinating about this deck, and the not just the symbolism, but the intention and kind of the dogma around, I don't know if dogma's the right word, but like the philosophies around like Crowley and his very odd and fraught and bizarre life experience. And I don't know, I feel like he could be put in a cabinet of curiosities. But yeah, I think that this would be of major interest too. I think this is very fascinating. And I mean, that's why it's stood the test of time. It's the mini one, unfortunately, but there's the Thoth. Okay, what do we got? Number 5. All right, I've got the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot, and like I was saying, this feels kind of the early Renaissance time, and so this is one of those that maybe isn't super odd, but it definitely is beautiful and full of like really interesting art, and the art feels like the time frame in which people kept their art in these cabinets of curiosities. And I also read too that the cabinets were actually rooms. So it was like a mini museum in someone's home, and it was really just about their collections, you know. I think I also chose this one because it is a little bit taboo. Oh, dang, that was perfect timing. And then that this especially, this kind of imagery just reminds me of like the secret interests of the rich and powerful throughout history, right? The stuff that us common folk weren't privy to, and all of the hedonism and debauchery and opulence. And I'm not saying this whole deck is that way. This feels like a very sweet deck a lot of the times. I just mean, you know, certain images remind me of that. There's something about the linen cardstock that makes me feel like it fits into this category as well. It just feels old. It feels like you stepped into an alternate version of the past. And this kind of thing, this is the kind of thing that I feel like I would have in my cabinet of curiosities. Not because there's anything odd about it, but because it's gorgeous and fascinating and provocative, but pure. And yeah, I don't know, that's what I would want in my cabinet. All right, the next one I have is the Literary Witches Oracle. So we're back kind of in the Victorian era. That's what this deck reminds me of. And maybe it's the linen cardstock as well. It's definitely the art style. And then these cards specifically, okay, I guess I'll break it down. The literary figures all look kind of creepy. Like that's like, you know, criteria number one, I guess. And then the figure, not the figures, the non-figures, the objects, right? The inanimate or whatever. These all feel kind of odd too, like the lonely milk jug and like one wing that you would maybe have found, and that reminds me of taxidermy as well. The hidden corners of things, the ancient art, like what is the morbidity, the surrealism, the unknown and secrets. Again, taxidermy, insects under glass. I don't know, that's what I think about. This could be a book, like someone's diary, or a book of spells, or... It's not just me. This is a very morbid deck. Like, right? I'm like looking at it like, yes, confirmed. Like the tree doesn't look like a normal tree. It looks like a spoopy tree. This person's hands and feet are like not connected to their body, and they are growing shrubbery, and that looks like mushrooms. I dig it, but it's very curious to me. I think it fits in very well. You know, just a haunted dress, no biggie. I wonder if anyone else did this one. I've watched a few videos, but not a ton. You know, the haunted house, the black pond, the skull. You cannot tell me this isn't creepy. And it's also very Victorian, you know. Hair, keeping hair as a memento. Eel in a jar. You know, the doll. This is not a normal doll. It's this creepy doll. So, I mean, that makes sense, right? It's witchy, and they're leaning into the spoopy part of witch. Definitely a curious deck. Okay, what else do we got? We've got the sacred symbols. I chose this because it feels very esoteric. It's got elemental images, symbolism. A couple of these decks, I don't know if we've seen them, but they have keys, and that always reminds me of a cabinet of curiosities. You know, we've got the evil eye. We've got Nordic protection, a Hamsa, pagan symbolism, ancient Egypt. There's our key. So I know this is very different than, like, visually than the other decks, but I do feel like, oh, this reminds me of like Twilight Zone, or like fortune tellers, and like looking into the future, and hypnotism, which was like very, very Rasputin. We've got sacred geometry and Ankh. So yeah, I think this is a good one too. Okay, number 8. Yes, 8. Obviously, the Carnival at the end of the world. So this is creepy, kind of scary, very Carnival, obviously, but like old time Carnival. Very old time. Sorry for the sirens if you can hear them. Okay, they're just passing, so it'll get quieter. very surreal, very absurd, but also like dark. Hold on, gotta move. I really need to get a table and chair to do this at, but the lighting's just best like right by my window. I have this floor to ceiling window in my bedroom, and I don't have any tables next to it. So this is what I do. And I like the lighting, I just don't like the position I have to be in. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, a sarcophagus, yes, definitely would be in someone's cabinet. I think this is a water buffalo or a yak with 4 legs and 2 arms, you know, just a normal thing. Oh wait, is this Orville Peck? Just kidding. If you know who Orville Peck is, that it was not a funny joke. I think what makes this deck so great is that it is so based in a bygone era when carnivals, like, have you ever seen like the way that children dressed up for Halloween back before like the 50s, like in the maybe like turn of the century, like 1900? It is the scariest thing I have ever seen. And like that's that's kind of what it feels like, you know. I mean, not that they dressed up like this, but that like the things that were kind of fun and whimsical and silly and like weird to our ancestors or people of the past is just straight up creepy now, like in a different way, in the way that it wasn't meant to be. This again reminds me of weird like taxidermy surgeries that people would do to make sideshow freak of nature, right? Tattoos too. Have you ever seen tattoos like from a cadaver, like, and it's just the skin like stretched so you could see their very historical tattoos? Like I've seen that in like the Yakuza and stuff like that. Here's another hybrid animal. And then, you know, taking the troop on the road. I mean, this one was a no-brainer, right? It says curious. It doesn't say curious in the name. No, it says Carnival. It should say curious in the name. Just kidding. Okay, we've got 2 more. The Tantric Takini. I chose this one because it has a lot of mysticism in it. It's in this box and it's like 2, like the way it sits is in 2 different piles, and it is not easy to get out either. So I think that this mixes art, the natural world, religion, esotericism, history, like I said, mysticism. Definitely piques my curiosity for sure. there's a lot in here that you don't see on first glance, you know? Everybody loves a sarcophagus. Like this. The idols and mythology and religious figures of any time in history and any religion, there's another key, I think are always interesting to people who seek knowledge and expansion. And maybe some of these decks, or not decks, I'm sorry, maybe some of these cabinets, maybe most of them were more of a flex than more about knowledge. But they were precursors to museums, so some people were in it for the knowledge, you know. I wonder if that was like the first like kind of black market thing, was kind of trading stolen artifacts from different cultures. I'm definitely not condoning it, but it's a thing and it happened. Okay, so the last deck is the Mysteries of the Black Madonna Tarot deck. And these are little, I said that funny, these are little altars that were made by the deck creator and then photographed. I love that there are items from all over the world. I love that there are items that are considered much more valuable next to items that are just little like miniatures that you could get at like a hobby shop, right? I also love when there are things like keys for, I mean, they're not for reference of scale, but I like how they do kind of reveal the scale of the altar itself, you know. So if that key maybe is this big in real life, then you can tell, you know, my hands are not in frame, but you can tell how big the altar would be. Or like these candles, these birthday candles, you know how big a birthday candle is, so that kind of gives you a clue as to how big everything else is. And they're just so rich. They're just so jam-packed with something beautiful to look at. And there's just such a wide variety of items in them. I think that's what makes them curious, on top of the spiritual factor and, you know, the religious factor. And I mean, if you want to go into the subject itself, no one really knows the origin of the Black Madonna or why she shows up in so many countries around the world. I mean, I think there are theories out there, and I have yet to read this book, so could I be contradicting what the creator was saying, Hetien was saying? Probably. But I'm pretty sure that's the case. And that's why it's so fascinating. This one's one of my favorites. I love how it's like a little wheat husk there. I love these beads. Anytime there are little like rosettes or rosebuds or flowers. A lot of Egypt in these. So those are my 10 decks. I also have a few items to show you. They may not be as curious or interesting as other people's, but I will just go through what I have and what if I were to have a curiosity deck, why do I keep saying deck? A curiosity cabinet, what I would put in it. I kind of do have one, and maybe I'll give you a tour at some point, but it's mainly just decks and a few books and just like one or two things. It's not really a display case for these items necessarily. This is my first one. This is my swan. It does not have a name. It would be extra special and interesting if it were an antique, yet it is not. I got it at Disneyland when I was a kid. There was a little glass shop, and there still is, I believe, in the French Quarter, and this is what I chose, and it's still intact, and I have not lost it, and I love it so much. So that's my little guy. He's not very sturdy, but I forgot to show this in my cliche tarot reader tag, but this is the biggest crystal I own. It was a birthday gift from my bestie. I do not know how to clean it. If someone could tell me how to clean it, that would be amazing. I tried to use a toothbrush, but nothing really happened. So yeah, I don't know. And I think I soaked it too, but I don't know if I'm just not using like the right liquids, and I don't know what's safe. I know I could just jujule it, but I don't want to. I want you to tell me because I'm lazy. But I love it, and that sits in my living room on my credenza. This Black Madonna came with my deck. Her face looks like messed up. Scary. Okay, and I believe this is 3D printed. It's really cool. And I will cherish it. It's pretty new, but so this is holy water that I got from the Grotto in Portland. And if you have not been, it's this wonderful place. It's kind of, I think it's partially a monastery, but it's this huge grounds of really peaceful, gorgeous greenery and buildings and statues and gardens. And it was a beautiful day, and I keep this in memory and in case I ever need to use it one day. I think I've used it once and I can't remember what I used it for. So this is more recent. I believe I got this one in San Francisco last summer, and I think it's for incense. Let me know if it's for something else and I'm wrong. But my family loves the movie Aladdin and always watched it when my brother and I were growing up. And so we call our apartment the Cave of Wonders, and this sits next to a sign in my house that says Cave of Wonders, and it's really cute. It feels old. It's probably not very old, but it feels old. This little guy, who also doesn't have a name, is from Visby, Sweden. I got it there when I was on a cruise through the Baltic, and it is made of real cat hair, and I did not know that when I got it, and I know that's kind of weird, but hey, now I have my own little taxidermy, so I think this definitely fits. And then the last thing I have is this beautiful little glass vessel that my mom had all in the house when I was growing up, and she said that these were all shells that she had found and that she put in here herself, and I have kept it and displayed it in every apartment that I have ever lived in, and it's really sentimental and I think it's really beautiful. It's one of my favorite possessions. So that's my cabinet of curiosity. I mean, I think it could use some work. Oh no, I have one more thing. Okay, hold on, let me grab it. Ugh. Okay. Everyone needs a wand, right? This is Ginny Weasley's wand. She is a character in the Harry Potter book series. She's a great character, and I have to be honest, I picked this purely off of aesthetics because that's just the kind of girl I am, and I love it, and it sits on my dresser in my bedroom. It doesn't really get a lot of use, but you know, if I ever need it. I really want Queenie's wand because it's beautiful. It has this like shell handle and then like a little gold piece, and then it goes, I think, brown in the actual wand part. And she's also my favorite character of Fantastic Beasts, and maybe even the whole Harry Potter series. I don't know, maybe that's a bold statement. I'm not gonna, don't hold me to it. But that is now it. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being my friend. Thanks for being curious. And you know what they say? My mom is coming, and I've got to go.